Friday, save me. That's right, I'm your host Andrew and this is Crypto Espresso, your teeny tiny daily shot of caffeinated crypto headlines. So much news today, oh my goodness. First up, there was a pretty surprising guest at Bitcoin Amsterdam. Nigel Farage, speaking to CoinMarketCap, the former Brexit party leader said Bitcoin has a great future, and he warned that inflation is a disease that's harder to cure than people think. He believes high levels of Bitcoin adoption in the US will gradually be seen in Europe, and while Farage doesn't think Bitcoin should be made legal tender in the UK right now, he thinks it could happen in the future. During a panel with Peter McCormack, the former right-wing politician drew parallels between the battle for Bitcoin adoption and his long-running campaign to get the UK to leave the European Union. Nigel now hosts a nightly show for the British channel GB News. During our interview on the CoinMarketCap podcast, Farage said he is fearful about central bank digital currencies. He claims a digital pound could erode privacy and lead to closer surveillance on how customers spend their money. Farage said, "This is ultimately your personal sovereignty gone out the window, living in a cashless society. If I've got the option of the pound under a central bank digital currency or Bitcoin on my cell phone, I know which one I will choose." Farage went on to call for London to become a Bitcoin center and said the city already has a reputation for financial innovation. But he conceded that there are difficult questions that must be answered surrounding how the government taxes profits. Nigel Farage's show was broadcast live from Bitcoin Amsterdam last night. Given how many Britons are distracted by the cost of living crisis, we asked whether it was a good time to be focused on crypto. He said that he likes to be ahead of stories and that he wanted to highlight to his viewers that Bitcoin is going to become a bigger part of their lives over the next few years. Farage also admitted that there are some people within the Bitcoin space that don't do it any favors at all. But reflecting on his time as a Euro skeptic, he added there were all sorts of very, very odd people around. But in the end, a very grown-up, sensible majority took over, and the same will happen here. Day 2 of Bitcoin Amsterdam began with a heated debate called Bitcoin's Media Problem. It featured Financial Times journalist Jemima Kelly, a vocal Bitcoin critic, and former Financial Times Alphaville editor Izabella Kaminska. They were joined by crypto journalists Pete Rizzo and Joe Hall. Kaminska denied writing FUD, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, during her time at the Financial Times and said she had focused on educated criticism. She added, "I think we were ahead of the curve on a lot of the stuff that later became understood in the industry, everything from the scaling challenges to the environmental footprint. I remember writing loads of pieces about how it's not going to be a cheap payment system." Meanwhile, Pete Rizzo argued that many mainstream journalists who criticize Bitcoin lack understanding. Meanwhile, Jemima Kelly went on to have a testy exchange with moderator Daniel Prince, who asked her whether she had seen the latest inflation print. She retorted, "Have you seen the latest Bitcoin price?" Ooh. Sorry, editorializing. The Financial Times columnist pointed out that many retail investors jumped into the space in 2021 as Bitcoin rallied towards a new all-time high of $68,700. She said losing 2/3 of an investment is not funny for everyday consumers, and some can't afford to hodl. Some people actually need enough money to pay for their mortgage. Some people aren't Bitcoin whales. Some people don't have money, she added. While Kelly described Bitcoin as an amazing invention, she argued that the advantages are outweighed by the drawbacks. And in our last news bit today, news outlets are doing a bad job of telling the Bitcoin story, the former editor of Financial Times Alphaville has told CoinMarketCap. Izabella Kaminska said this is part of a broader media problem, and it's not just specific to the cryptocurrency space. She argued that many newsrooms suffer from a lack of resources, meaning journalists just don't have enough time to analyze what they're doing. According to Kaminska, the complexities and technical nuances surrounding Bitcoin doesn't lend itself to soundbite culture either. Nonetheless, she does think that Bitcoin is now being taken more seriously by traditional news outlets. Kaminska also thinks that Bitcoiners often end up missing a lot of positive coverage they get too. And speaking of soundbite culture, Crypto Espresso is awfully great, don't you think? So be sure to click the dislike button, adjacent like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on that little bell icon to get buzzed whenever a terribly amazing episode of Crypto Espresso goes live. Well, golly gee, we sure got a lot of Bitcoin opinions on today's episode. But what did you think? Well, let us know in those comments below because I read them and I might just shout out my favorites in a future episode. Do you want to learn more about our headlines or crypto in general? Why, just ask Alex in the description below. Alex is also a super whiz when it comes to Web3 and the metaverse, and that does it for today and the week here at Crypto Espresso. Again, I've been your host Andrew, these have been your headlines, and ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. See you Monday.